Bezos-backed company surpasses 100 million in single-family home acquisitions while U.S. housing shortage worsens. You know Bezos, the Amazon
Yeah,
guy,
yeah,
Jeff Bezos. Yeah, we
yeah.
yeah we know him personally, right? Yeah. Apparently, there's an article out on Yahoo Finance. I mean, not apparently, it is there. It's talking about him acquiring some sort of business to acquire single family homes and turn them into rentals. So I'll lead in with this article right here. Countless news headlines have been calling for a housing crash for the better part of a year, yet prices are still climbing in many parts of the US. We've seen this a little bit. It's been kind of spotty where some houses are still getting multiple offers, some are kind of staying stagnant. And that's according to data from Redfin. The median sale price has increased by over 9.38% since January and has fallen only 3.4% from the peak in May 2022. Despite rising mortgage rates, buyers are finding little relief in home prices because the massive shortage of supply. We've seen that in our market. It's just not a lot of homes to go around. According to an analysis from Realtor.com, the gap between single family home construction and household formations grew to 6.5 million homes in 2022. Uh, Shortly after home prices began to surge in 2021, Amazon.com founder Jeff Bezos made a bet on Seattle-based startup that had a mission to make real estate investments more accessible to retail investors. That year, Arrived Homes became the first company to legally sell shares of individual rental properties to non-accredited investors. Investors on the real estate platform have now funded over 294 single family homes with a total value of more than $109 million. What is this going to mean for home buyers in the future?
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear here. Homeownership in America is under attack. And I know that's a bold statement. Some might even say it's an extreme statement, but the 109 million that they've spent on homes, they bought 294 of them. That gives you a median price of $370,000. Now, $370,000 price range is middle class all day.
Yeah, in
This
most
isn't
markets anyway.
Yeah, this isn't them buying affordable houses like most investors do that are looking for rental income. So the question that everyone has to ask themselves is, why are billionaires buying up middle class homes?
Well, they probably see some sort of rate of return on it. You would think, right? Because a lot of billionaires are much smarter than the normal cat. I would imagine they wouldn't become billionaires if not.
Absolutely, they see the value in it. See, it's like this right here. If I own a company and I hire people who are middle class workers,
Mhm.
and those middle class workers, I pay them for work. But then when they go home, they have no choice but to go home to a house that I own because I've bought them all. Then they give me my money back in rent. And in turn, I get free labor.
Yeah.
Now, I know that's an extreme. Some people will say that's a conspiracy theory and that it's extreme. But here's another point that the article makes, and MetLife Investment stated that right now, about 700,000 homes are owned by institutional owners. These are your big name, big money people.
Mhm.
They own about 700,000
Across the US.
across the US,
Yeah.
and their goal is 7.6 million by 2030. Now, we're at the end of 2023. So in the next 6 years, they plan to 10x the number of homes that they own. For what? We've already told you there's a 6.5 million home shortage in the United States. And if they buy up 7 million, which is basically the gap of shortage, well, then that gap just shorts even more to 13 million, 13.5 million homes
Yeah.
shortage. and you're only left with the opportunity to rent once all the houses are bought up. And the other thing that was pretty interesting that the article brought up was is that in America, homeownership is at the lowest level since 1970.
Yeah, I was reading some other stats too that when it came to renter preference, younger folks, not us, younger than us, seem to be desiring more single family home rental situations over the traditional apartments. You know, hey, we get out of our house, our first place, we rent an apartment and eventually buy a house or get a townhouse or something like that. A lot of the younger people much rather prefer the single family to start off with. So I think they see the trend where it's heading, and they're making adjustments to meet that need and to, of course, make a quick buck out of it, or not a quick buck, a long-term buck out of it. That's because this definitely is a long-term game. This is not a short-term play.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what they're doing with real estate is they are trying to turn real estate into the new Wall Street. When you invest money into a corporation on Wall Street, you're backing the fact that people who run that company are going to make a profit with the money that you're investing in that company. And in turn, you're going to reap the rewards of it. What they're doing is taking an essential element of life,
Hmm.
shelter.
Shelter, right?
We all need it.
Food, clothing, shelter,
Yeah,
right?
we all need it. It's an essential element of life. And they're trying to take real estate and make it the new Wall Street because they view real estate as a safer investment than Wall Street.
Yeah.
There's a lot of corporations that have gone down, have tanked over the years. I mean, even more recently, we just seen Bed Bath and Beyond went under. Several banks this year have gone under.
And there's a lot of other companies out there in trouble as well, a lot of retail chains.
Exactly. So, but the one thing that everybody needs is shelter. And there's already a gap, a $6.5 million gap. I
Man,
mean, I'm sorry, 6.5 million home gap, not dollar, home gap in the United States. And if they buy up 7 million more houses over the next 6 years, that gap is going to widen.
let me put the tinfoil hat conspiracy on here. You know, you might have heard of Bill Gates. He bought up a bunch of farmland, and some conspiracy theorists out there might mention that he's trying to control the food supply. At that billionaire level, I don't want to make rash assertions here, but yeah, hypothetically speaking, of course, we're just kind of speaking out loud here. Is that a play for the housing, food, clothing, shelter? You know,
Absolutely, 100%. It all adds up. I mean, if you want to take control of anything, you say, well, what does this thing need, right? And we're going to say humanity. What do we need? We already
yeah,
said food, clothing, shelter. So if you take up those three things and you dominate them at a high level, then essentially you control uh,
the needs of
you
people.
control the needs of people, you
Yeah.
control the civilization, and eventually you build a culture of people who work to rent from you to give you your money back, and the labor is free.
Yeah, I mean, of course, just speculation, but it kind of makes sense. So Bezos's investment in this real estate company's seed round appears to have been well timed since skyrocketing home prices, followed by rising mortgage rates, have helped send the home ownership rate in the U.S. to its lowest level since 1970. The billionaire tech entrepreneur isn't the only one betting on the U.S. becoming a nation of renters. Last November, JP Morgan Chase and Company announced its joint venture to acquire and develop $1 billion worth of single family rental communities. MetLife Investment Management, which you previously cited, estimates that institutions owned some 700,000 single family rentals in 2022 and expects that number to reach 7.6 million homes by 2030.
Yeah.
Wow,
I
dude.
mean, even the JP Morgan play, right? It's astronomical. Like it doesn't this article doesn't go into it, but let me just paint this picture for you here, if you
Yeah.
will, right? You take a company that is investing $1 billion into single family homes that are going to be used as rentals. Now, everyone's out here pitching the lie that the housing market is going to collapse. There's weakness. There's this. Home prices are still going up. There's strength. Even with interest rates up, people are still buying. We see it every day. I just told you about the multiple offer situation I was in last night, and we found out we won that today. But that's not the story for everybody, because on the end of every multiple offer situation, somebody wins and there could be more than one person who loses.
Yeah.
So it just shows you the gap in housing. But to take $1 billion and say, hey, we're going to build a bunch of single family homes that we're going to use as rentals, but we're using builders who would normally build houses that would be used to be sold to homeowners or those wanting to be homeowners. Now they're going to be tied up with building houses for JP Morgan at a huge number. $1 billion is a lot of money. I don't know if a lot of people understand how many houses you can build with $1 billion. But we're
Single
building a
family
lot.
homes, a
Yeah,
lot.
we're building a lot of single family homes to use as rentals. Why are billionaires buying and building middle class homes unless there's some intention that we don't know about? There's something going on that we don't know about.
There's a return on investment. That's the bottom line. It seems like a safe risk, like you just illustrated before, about what's the basic necessities of human life: food, clothing, shelter, right? Oh, by the way, for all our listeners out there, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel, give us a like. If you feel generous, please hit that super thanks icon and drop us a tip. All proceeds and donations are going to go to the podcast so we can purchase better equipment and make this podcast more enjoyable for all our viewers. I was also reading up on something that some investors are even building single family homes for rent by basically signing a long-term tenant into it and build a house like somebody would buy a new construction and hold them into a long-term lease for that property. So, wow, get a long-term renter in, have cash flow for a guaranteed amount of time, and that person is locked into that. And I don't know how long these rental commitments would be. Let's say it's 5 years. I don't know. Let's just say 5 years. 5 years of cash flow guaranteed, and then you can turn around and re-rent it out once that other tenant leaves. And you know what? If the rental side of real estate starts having trouble, you can turn around and sell it back on the open market and still make your money back. I mean, it's a smart play. But for the people who we advocate for, and that's homeowners and homeowners and home buyers, this is not good news for them. I mean, if you already own the home, okay, but for new buyers coming into the market, it really puts them on a level that's kind of unfair because let's say they're not new construction properties, it's just other ones in established neighborhoods. Now home buyers with their mortgage loan pre-approval letter has to compete with big corporations or big investment funds, whoever's buying these properties, and they're coming in hot with cash, slapping it down like a spade. They're trying to compete against these cash-rich investment funds or corporations, and there's just no competing when they got that high of cash because they literally can overspend on the property and calculate their rate of return over time. And the average home buyer can't compete with that.
No. And they can overspend because they're gonna get it back anyways. And so the thing that everyone needs to know is, if you're out there right now and you have some young ones at home like you and I do,
Yeah.
right now, the impacts of what they are doing to homeownership in America is going to be catastrophic. There's going to be major fallout from this. And I believe they know that. And it is their intention that once you buy up all of the real estate, there's nothing for anyone else to own. And so the only option is to become renters. And if we become a society of renters, and once people start to realize I go to work every day and work my butt off to come home to a house that I don't even own, and then the money that I'm given goes back to the people who paid it to me, then this is nothing more than modern day servitude.
You know what this kind of reminds me of? Based on how I understand this, Walt Disney,
Yes.
founder of Disney, he had this idea right before he died for Epcot, experimental community of tomorrow, experimental prototype community of tomorrow. I think that's the acronym. But he had this sort of like a diorama, and he had in the center was where people would work, and shooting out from the center, they had like a train or whatever transportation it was bringing to people's living quarters, and
Yeah.
then they come back to work in a straight line and back to the quarters and
Yeah. Like
very efficient.
like
Sounds like
Hunger Games.
sort of. I don't know if we want to go that far,
Yeah.
but
Uh,
we can
uh,
go anywhere with this really because we don't know. Here's what we do know: the average home buyer can't compete, even if they're straight cash buyer. I mean, these guys got bigger pockets, and from what it sounds like, some of these, type like Jeff Bezos is doing it is where you can buy stock into these companies and be a mini landlord, quote unquote, and get a return on your investment through, but of course, taxes, you won't get the same tax benefits as being a homeowner because if you sell the stock, pay your capital gains and whatnot like that. But yeah, that's it's unfortunate. So, what can our home buyers out there do, and what should our home sellers do going forward with this level of competition on the horizon?
well, I think at some point we have to say, okay, who is it that is buying the real estate from us? If you're a homeowner, right?
Yeah,
And you don't want to see this country go down the wrong path because that's where this is heading if we go down this path. You have to say, who is it that I'm selling my house to?
mhm,
And sometimes, when I was young, I used to hear the saying that not all money is good money. And I didn't understand that. And it
yeah,
was like, what do you mean it's not all good money? Well, this is one of those things where not all money is good money. If you can sell your house to someone else who's going to take care of it and maintain it and give a piece of the American dream to the next generation, then that's what we should do. We shouldn't sell out
mhm.
to big corporations and billionaires who just want to buy up everything and own all of the real estate. We shouldn't do it.
I mean, I agree, and I think some people would definitely stand by that principle because I think there's a lot of, just working in this industry, there's a lot of good-natured people out there. On the other hand, if a seller's been sitting on the market for 60, 70, 80 days and somebody comes in, slaps cash down and says, "Oh, close in 10 days, all cash," it's kind of hard not to take it, in a sense, unless you stand by principle, really.
Yeah, and that's what they're banking on. They're banking on the fact that, there's even a show out there called American Greed. They're banking on
Yeah.
the fact that Americans are going to be greedy and take the highest offer. And whether it's on the market one day or whether it's on the market 80 days, 90 days. And let's be honest, you and I, we know the neighborhoods that are the neighborhoods that most investors will want to buy in because they're buying up the neighborhoods where the school districts are the most desirable.
Yeah, the most desirable locations.
Yes. So they know that people will pay an exorbitant amount of rent in order to make sure that their kids go to those schools.
Not only that, lower crime, better infrastructure because they have more money to spend because, more taxes are paid. Because every time somebody pays their mortgage, it pays taxes. It goes back to the city. Um, but yeah, man. Whew, God, that's going to be, if that really catches fire like they're expecting, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean the thought and the idea of what they're saying, and most people will say, "Oh, well, it's really hard to get into real estate investing." And what Jeff Bezos is doing is allowing people to get into investing in real estate on the smallest level. Part of that's true. However, I don't think that they're doing it because they want the average Joe to be able to invest in real estate. No, they're opening it up as a front, if you will, to make it look like that's what the intent is. Meanwhile, they're having their bigger billionaire friends get involved with it and buy into the company so that way that they can continue to buy up as much of the real estate as possible.
Yeah, the average Joe spending $100 to $500 worth of shares in this possible companies out there, real estate. I don't know what to call them, real estate funds. I don't know. Um, that's just small little seed money. That's
Yeah,
not going to fund it in the bigger picture. That's not what they're paying these builders to build, to build with. It doesn't buy the materials. It doesn't buy all of the cost of labor and whatnot.
no. They want the big eye buyers who have the institutional buyers, the hedge fund
Let's explain what
managers.
iBuyers are,
Right
please.
there, institutional buyers. They
Yeah.
are people who buy houses, they have large quantities of cash. They buy houses with no emotion, only with the intent to profit from them long term. And they are very well aware of the fact that people are comfortable with renting and some people just don't have a desire to do anything more than just be a renter. And so therefore their play on this whole thing is, hey, I will buy this house and I will hold it in this company for the next 100, 200, 300 years. But I know that shelter is something that everyone requires. At some point, and I brought up the movie Hunger Games, at some point you could get to a point of a trade-off of labor for shelter.
I volunteer as tribute.
You could get to a point of saying, "Hey, I will give you a job to work.
Mhm.
You are my laborer, and I will give you shelter." Again, it's modern day servitude.
Man, I guess we'll have to see in the future. All right, let's go ahead and end this podcast here. Guys, if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Please give us a like for the algorithm. Hit that super thanks button if you're feeling generous and want to give us a tip. With that, thanks for watching. See you soon.